What's going on, you guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today's bittersweet, and I say this because this is probably the last video I am making of this Civic wagon on the channel. So if you guys haven't been posted with the Civic wagon rebuild, if you guys came onto the series late or just barely coming onto the channel now, we've been saving this car right here for the last like almost 3 months now, and it's ready to be posted up for sale. So in this video, I'm pretty much going to talk about or briefly talk about everything we've done to the car, and I did want to talk about the budget of the turbo kit, because I kept it super simple and I kept it very cost effective, like super cheap, and we'll break that down in just a second. But this video is also kind of like a pro and con walk around of the car, and just to show the video towards like anybody who are interested in buying the car, that are coming from afar, you know what I mean? Like, people nowadays like to ask a million questions about the car, so I figured let's make a video and show the whole car in depth, inside, outside, drivability, so on and so forth, so you can check the video out before making travels. But honestly, I do want to keep this car kind of like sold in California or locally, or whatever the case may be, because one, California car, I do have the smog certificate for it. I smogged this car before we boosted it, and I do need this car gone like ASAP. And when I say ASAP, I mean like hopefully within the next couple of days, because I need to make room here, and I could use the money towards some more important things going on in my life for now that I need to pay off, you know what I mean? So like, I apologize before this video goes up. I apologize for anybody who is interested in this car, like out of state or whatever the case is. I can't guarantee you guys that the car will still be around once you guys see this video, but I'll be sure to note in the description below whether the car is still available or not. Damn, the hood looks freaking amazing right here. So let's just get right into it, guys. Let's talk about this car and all of the like factory stuff to it. When we got this car, it was a shell. We planted an engine in it, which we'll talk in a minute. We planted an engine in it, we smogged it, and we got it ready for the new owner. And a lot of the stuff that we kind of did like in between building this car, waiting for parts and such like that, we replaced the fender. The fender was a huge dookie dark brown brown that didn't match the original paint to the car. This is cappuccino brown. I was just fortunate enough to have a brown fender in the backyard. We replaced it, we buffed it, it matches pretty good. And then we painted the bumper in the front, and we painted the bumper in the rear to match the color of the car, because one, we didn't get a front bumper, or we did, but it was half. The back was painted black, but we sorted that out. We painted the hood. The hood was crazy dookie brown as well, and now we got something closer to the shade of the cappuccino brown, and obviously a lot more glossier. The hood is painted underneath as well too, as well as the radiator support itself. The body of the car is in fair condition. I mean, granted, this is the original paint and body from factory, so I mean, there are going to be a lot of small dings and dents here and there. The most major one is this guy right there, but it's not really a big deal because this could be popped out. I'm just not into that part of the build of, you know, the bodywork and paint stuff. So that's going to be there. And like I said, the rest of the car itself has some small little dinks, you know, here and there, and it's pretty clean for the most part. It could use a polish, you know what I mean, like a sand and polish, just because it has some really fine line scratches right there. But aside from that, for being the original paint, it's in fair condition. The roof is pretty straight for the most part, but it looks like it may have like a little cave in right here. I can't really tell. Oh yeah, a little bit, but with this color you can't even tell. Now, the whole thing with this build was to keep it kind of like stock sleeperish, so we left it with the hubcaps, and this is one of my favorite hubcaps. I actually have 2 sets of this, so I'm throwing one on the car. And big shout out to Joaquin, because he hooked it up with some brand new tires, and they are literally like 95% Federal Super Street 595. These are 195 60 14, I believe, and they are fresh all around the whole car, ready for all those mileage to be stacked up on them. A lot of people have been asking me about the roof rack. I don't have the key for it, so it is going with the car. It is staying on the car, and it kind of suits this car because it is kind of like, you know, a family-oriented car. It's something you can use for camping, something you can use for hauling things on the roof. A lot of space on the roof, a lot of space in the trunk. That's just kind of what this car is. And the interior itself is pretty complete. It is in decent condition. All the door panels seems to be very clean, right? And the dashboard has pretty much everything here. Nothing's broken, nothing's missing. Steering wheel, cluster, everything works 100%. And you guys know the EF, we have this common issue with the driver's side seat bolster being all torn up. I couldn't find seat covers, or at least in the color that I'm trying to shoot for. So this is just the most hideous thing in the interior itself, other than the seats maybe having some years of stain. This car did come from a mechanic, and I don't know, it might have been a parts hauler at one point, but it is complete for the most part. A little scrubbing won't hurt it, and after a little scrubbing, this interior should be looking fresh. The trunk itself, I cleaned everything in here, and it has like a Ford Explorer cargo cover, which is freaking awesome. Back in the civicwagon.com threads, there was write-ups on how to install one of these. You can find this in the junkyard in multiple colors. I was fortunate this car came with one because it looks freaking awesome. It looks almost OEM, other than these little strings holding it up. But for the most part, the rear cargo area is complete and somewhat clean. It does have a spare tire in it, but no tools. And yeah, if you guys want to stock some stuff back here and keep it out of sight, tint for one, and two, cargo cover will keep people from seeing what's in here. Now, I don't know what percentage tint this is, but it is freaking dark, really dark. And it looks good. You know, I'm not much of a tint guy, but it looks good on this car. All the lights do work in this car. The cluster is working. We have literally the parking, the corner signals, the low beams, the high beams, the rear lights, they're all working. Rear lights, they're all working. License plate lights, they are working as well. And yeah, that's all 100% functional. The heater works. I think the resistor is missing a couple of resistor like wires on it, and 1 and 2 doesn't work, but 3 and 4 does. The heater definitely works in this car. The stereo definitely works in this car as well, right? We got a speaker there, speaker here, and yeah, everything inside the car is 100% functional and ready for that comfort drive. Now, I don't know what suspension is on this car. It is orange body. It does have coilovers and extended top hats all around. Let's get into the engine bay compartment and talk about all the stuff that's going on in here. So when I got the car, it was a shell, and it literally didn't have anything but 2 motor mounts in the engine bay. Now, the engine that we planted in this car is a D15 B2. The B2 is originally the dual point version in the EF, and not the D16 A6 that the RT is supposed to have, which is the same engine as the CRX SI and the EF hatch SI. But this engine is obviously multi-point converted, and it is a completely rebuilt engine. This engine only has about roughly 15,000 miles, and the person that built this engine is local to me. Used to be Synergy Auto Works. Ngoc rebuilt this engine for my uncle when he had that blue wagon right there before selling it to my brother, and then I swapped in a B20 VTEC. So the single cam has been sitting in the backyard for, I think, 3 years, covered up, and finally put it to use. It actually went to my buddy Chad's car first to get his car up and going before he did the B20 swap. So when we threw it in his car, it has a brand new water pump, timing belt, tensioner, and we did new oil pan gasket because we had to bung it for the turbo. And I did ARP head studs, brand new MLS head gasket, and aside from that, top to bottom, it's bone diggity stock. We threw in an SI transmission as well too, because we did convert this car back to front wheel drive. Granted, this car was bought for the all wheel drive stuff, so it is front wheel drive. And we put pretty much a brand new Yonaka clutch in it, and it's been holding up perfectly fine, especially because we knew we were going to go boost. So that clutch is there to make some more power. The engine is super healthy. It sounds freaking amazing, and it's got plenty of life in it for the future. And you know, granted, the engine was as healthy as it was, I wanted to give it a little kick, so we boosted it. Now, I've always seen a lot of builds online growing up of people doing like homemade turbos, sleepers, DIYs and stuff like that. I kind of wanted to keep this the same concept. I wanted to be a sleeper. Obviously the car looks the way it looks because sleeper, and then I try to make a turbo kit looking as stock as possible underneath here. Now the orange, I don't know why it turned orange. Now I'm realizing that this manifold was painted and it burned off. And again, trying to keep it sleeper by running all the pipings through the intake box, keeping a lot of the original stuff, you know, EGR valve, so on and so forth. So I kind of want to talk about the turbo kit, guys, and all that was put into it to make it possible for this car. And from the beginning, I wanted to keep it super budgeted. Granted, I do a lot of the fabrication myself and things like that, but I did buy majority of the stuff for super cheap by, like I said, just piecing it together instead of buying a whole kit. Kits nowadays on eBay starting to go up a lot in price. They're like $600, $700, $800 now. From the last time I've seen it, probably at the $500 range. So piecing this together was like my best option, and I'm gonna give you guys a quick little breakdown of everything that I've paid for as far as the turbo kit goes. Now, starting off from the main parts of the turbo kit, we're speaking of the turbo setup itself. We have the manifold right here, which is a cheap JDMsport manifold, turbo manifold, T3 style, and that's probably about 40 bucks. This is the cheapest one you can probably get, a cast style manifold. Attaching to the manifold, we have an eBay 57 trim. I paid $104 for that with the flange to make the downpipe, and the flange itself was $13. Now, you can buy a whole downpipe for like under $100, but it's pretty hideous. It's huge, it doesn't fit right sometimes, so I just opt to making one myself. Now, part of the manifold, we have the wastegate. This is a Speed Daddy 38 mil wastegate. It's kind of like the replica of the Turbo Smart, granted the style of it. And for this wastegate, I did pay 50 bucks for it, and it came with the flanges and everything. I had a bunch of pipings lying around, so I made a dump tube for that. Now the dump tube, again, you can probably pay one for 20 bucks, a 90 degree that just points straight to the ground. The oil feed, the oil lines, I think they're like $40 for the kit. I did piece it locally myself for way cheaper than that, but realistically, buying it off eBay, you're looking to spend about $30 to $40. Again, I fabricated a lot of the stuff myself, and the piping and stuff I already had sitting around. But if you was to buy a universal piping kit yourself, you're going to be looking at about $90 for a whole bunch of miscellaneous 90, 45s, couplers, and T-bolt clamps to connect the turbo to the intercooler to the intake manifold. Now, you can buy the kit that comes with an intercooler. I paid for the intercooler separately because I was looking for a specific size. This intercooler right here was about $95. It's a little baby intercooler that sits behind the T-bar, which sits behind the bumper as well too, and that helps to keep the car looking super sleeper without having to cut any part of the front bumper grill. Now, you don't have to run a blowout valve, but if you want to for the noise, you can, which is what I did. This eBay rep of the tile 50 mil is $38, and I tell you what, of all the eBay blowout valve that I've ever ran, this is probably my favorite. Now, in part of boosting your car, you have to get the management, the fuel system correct and all that. You can get yourself a $100 Walbro 255 fuel pump. In this case, the car came with an AEM 390 fuel pump, so that kind of cut my cost out. But for you guys, $100 Walbro, it'll support up to 400, 500 horsepower perfectly fine. And as far as the engine management goes, we are running a chip Honda OBD1 ECU on chrome, and you can probably get that with ECU for like $100 to $150. So for me, shout out to George, he hooked it up with an ECU he no longer needs, and we were able to get this car programmed, tuned on chrome with a Honda chip ECU. Now, obviously, we're trying to keep this car super sleeper, and you know, in part of the turbo system and the engine itself, obviously we had to upgrade the exhaust system. The exhaust system is an eBay, like, I don't know, Spec D or Yonaka, not even a Yonaka, I don't know what it is, but it is a 2 1/4 exhaust system all the way back with the flex pipe, and the muffler in the back with the turbo system itself. I think it has a resonator. I don't remember if I put a resonator on it, but the car is actually pretty quiet, and that keeps it even more stealth for this whole build. So the car does have an eBay traction bar, and it is working accordingly. I don't really trust eBay traction bar, but as long as it's installed correctly and everything is kind of like Loctite into place, it should be perfectly fine. If you guys have been on the channel and you guys have seen the KRX build, that car uses the same traction bar that's in this car. Yeah, I think that's pretty much everything that is underneath the hood. At least a brief look of everything on with the car. Not every car is perfect, and you know, I don't like hiding things from people, especially something that I'm selling. So let's kind of touch bases on that a little bit. I mentioned earlier, the car was in a front-end collision a couple years ago, but they replaced the core support. Nothing is bent on the side rails, the frames on the side, or anything like that. Core support was changed out, everything fits accordingly, and I painted the core support, which was white to brown. While we are here in the engine compartment, the only thing that I'm noticing that's like bugging me is the power steering. Some days I'll see maybe a drip or two from the power steering, like going down to the bottom and kind of drenching the floor a little bit. I don't know where it's coming from. I don't know how to fix power steering leakage because I've never had power steering before, but if it doesn't really bother you that much that it's dripping once or twice every now and then, it's really not a big deal. The interior of the car, I've already mentioned it, the seat is kind of torn up and it's kind of stained, but a little bit of scrub, this thing should be looking fresh again. I also mentioned that the heater 1 and 2 does not work, but 3 and 4 does perfectly fine. So as long as you change the resistor over there under the heater blower, it should work. I mean, at least that's what my manual says. There are just small things like this right here, you know, just from age, the body of the car, I've kind of touched that a little bit, and aside from it, it runs and drives perfectly fine. Let me give you guys a little startup here. Fuel pump priming like butter. No problems, no issues whatsoever, no check engine light, and let's see how this car sounds like. Now this car is tuned. It is tuned, just finding out yesterday, on 4-5 pounds, and it made 125 horsepower, which is pretty good for what the B2 comes from factory, right? And the turbo, I mean, the whole car, the fuel delivery, the turbo, the head studs, it's all there for the engine to make 10 pounds safely. But because we didn't have a boost controller and we didn't know what spring was in the car, we tuned it as it was, and I wasn't trying to make a ton of power anyways. Like I said, it's just a fun little daily commuter, grocery getter, and I left it at that. Big shout out to Guys and Jeremy for taking care of this car really quickly. It only took like 4 or 5 dyno pulls and AFR was spot on. I'm sorry if this video was all over the place, guys. I used up pretty much all of the battery and all of the memory to make this video. It was kind of hard with the music in the background, people driving up and down the street, and I was showing the car here on the driveway because I didn't want it to be on the dirt. Granted, I just washed it yesterday. Hopefully I covered some major key things with this car, guys. It is ready to be sold. I'm gonna post it up today now that we finished this video. And if you guys are interested, be sure to check in the description below to see if this car is still available, and if it is, be sure to hit me up on the social media. I'll try to go through my request messages because I've been getting a ton of them, and they've all just kind of been getting drowned because of how many messages I get a day. But if you guys are interested in the car, if it's still available, be sure to hit me up, and we'll talk more into details as far as the registration and everything else goes, guys. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and if you did, I truly appreciate it if you guys could leave a thumbs up. And if you guys want to see what's going to happen next, which I'm probably going to get started on the other car here in a minute, be sure to hit the subscribe button. But with that being said, thank you guys for watching. I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.